John F. Kennedy was born in 1917 in Massachusetts, USA, and grew up in a wealthy family. He graduated from Harvard in 1940 and served in the USA Navy during World War II. He was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1946 and later to the Senate in 1952. In 1916, he became the youngest person ever elected President of the United States. At the age of 43 years, John Kennedy is known for his charismatic personality and his efforts to improve civil rights and social welfare programs in USA. John F. Kennedy served as the 35th President of the United States from 1961 until assassination in 1963. During the Cold War, Kennedy focused on preventing the spread and the communism and strengthening the United States military and economic power. He played a significant role in the Cuban Missile Crisis, negotiating with Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev to remove nuclear missiles from Cuba, which ultimately helped to prevent a nuclear war between the USA and the US Soviet Union. In 1961, he authorized the failed Bay of Pigs invasion, an attempt to overthrow the Cuban government under Fidel Castro. In 1963, John Kennedy had a famous speech in Berlin declaring solidarity with the people in the West on the famous story, Ich bin ein Berliner. Richard Nixon was born in California in 1913 and served in the U.S. Navy during World War II. He was elected to the House of Representatives in 1946 and the Senate in 1950. In 1952, he became vice president under President Dwight D. Eisenhower. He served as president from 1969 to 1974. When he resigned due to the Watergate scandal, Nixon is known for his foreign policy initiatives, including his efforts to improve relations with China and his policy of detente with the Soviet Union. In the context of the Cold War, Nixon proposed a policy of detente which aimed to ease tensions between the United States and Soviet Union. His administration engaged in arms control negotiations and established diplomatic relations with People's Republics of China. Nixon also oversaw the end of the Vietnam War through the policy of Vietnamization, which involved the gradual withdrawal of American troops and the transfer of the responsibility to the South Vietnam. In 1972, he visited China and met with Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai and later with Chairman Mao Zedong. Begin the process of normalization relations between U.S. and China. He also signed several arms transfer agreements with the Soviet Union, including the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty, SALT I, in 1972. However, Nixon was involved in several controversial events and included the secret bombing of Cambodia during the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal. Castro was born in Cuba in 1926 and grew up in a wealthy family. He studied law at the University of Havana and became involved in the leftist political movement. In 1959, he led the Cuban Revolution and became Prime Minister of Cuba. He later became president and held the position until 2008. Castro is known for his communist ideology and his resistance to USA influence in Cuba. During the Cold War, Castro intervened in several cases. He established a communist government in Cuba and he developed ties with the Soviet Union, including the installation of the Soviet missiles in Cuba in 1962. This event led the Cuban Missile Crisis, a tense standoff between US and Soviet Union. Castro also supported leftist movement in other Latin American countries, including Nicaragua and El Salvador. Nikita Khrushchev was born in Ukraine in 1894 and rose through the ranks of Soviet Communist Party. He became the premier of the Soviet Union in 1958 and held the position until 1964. Khrushchev is known for his efforts to reform the Soviet economy and his confrontational foreign policy with the US. During the Cold War, Khrushchev intervened in several key events. He became the leader of the Soviet Union following the death of Joseph Stalin in 1953, and they initiated a period of the Stalinization, attempting to reduce the power of Soviet secret police and improve living conditions for Soviet citizens. Khrushchev also famously banked this. Henry Alfred Kissinger. Henry Kissinger was born in Germany in 1923 and immigrated to the USA in 1938 to escape the Nazi persecution. He earned a PhD in political science from Harvard, became a professor at Harvard, entering government service. He served as the National Security Advisor and later the Secretary of State under the orders of President Richard and Gerald Ford. Kissinger is very known for his realist approach to foreign policy and his efforts to improve relations with China and Soviet Union. During this Cold War, Kissinger intervened in many historical events that are key. He played a key role in the negotiation of the end of the Vietnam War, including these peace accords in Paris in 1973. He also facilitated the opening of the diplomatic relations between USA and China in 1972, including Nixon visits to China. Kissinger also played a role in the negotiation of arms control with the Soviet Union, as include the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty, SALT I, in 1972. Ho Chi Minh was born in Vietnam in 1819 and became involved in the nationalist and the communist movements of the South Asia. He led the Vietnamese independence movement against French colonial rule and later the USA involvement in the Vietnam War. Ho Chi Minh served as the president of North Vietnam from 1954 and until his death in 1969. He is known for his commitment to socialism and his leadership in the Vietnamese independence movement. During the Cold War, Ho Chi Minh intervened in several key events in this period of the Cold War. He led the communist forces in the Vietnam War against USA and the South Vietnamese force, ultimately leading the withdrawal of USA troops for Vietnam in 1973. He also established close ties with the Soviet Union and China and support communist movement in other Southeast Asian countries, including Laos and Cambodia. Thank you.